Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. So in this video I'm going to do a tutorial just kind of on evaluating cards, or well, at least, seeing whether a card is good or bad, or whether you can use a card or how you can use it or what you can use it for. So I'm going to start with just using this Trunks as a demo card, but you'll see me switch around and take a look at a whole bunch of things. So to begin with, when it comes to cards and when it comes to what makes a card good, so why does Tech Trunks good but this physical Bardock is bad? It's gonna come down to either situations, team builds, or utility of the card, or its overall usefulness. So one of the first things we need to look at is leader skill. So if you look at this Trunks, his leader skill is 170% attack and HP, and 130% defense for Future Saga, and 120% attack and defense for all superclass categories, plus he gives key. When you get a card, look at its leader skill first. Generally, leader skills can operate in multiple ways. You can have 150% across all category, or across attack, defense, and HP. You can have 120% across all of them. You can have 100%, you can have key plus 4, key plus 2, key plus 3. You can have various types of leader skills. But one of the things to determine whether your category that you have a leader skill for is valuable is just by taking a look at the amount of cards that exist under the leader skill. So you see me cycling through here. You can see first off just how many LRs exist in the Future Saga category, but also how diverse the Future Saga category is. It's got some androids, it's got Trunkses, it's got Future Gohans, it's got some Mars, it's got some Blue Saiyans, it's got some Vegetos, it's got Zamasu, Goku Black, Merge Zamasu, Goku Black Zamasu LR, it's got some cells in there. So right off the bat, the Future Saga is both a large and variable category, so that makes the lead skill here a bit more valuable than, say, for example, HP, attack and defense plus 50%, not just from a numerical standpoint, but learn to evaluate leader skills based on how many cards are under that category, or how wide a variety of a team that card lets you play. An example, or kind of a look at other kinds of leader skills that you can get, is obviously you can get like the Shadow Dragon Saga leader skill, which I'll show you on Nova Shenron. Nova Shenron has a Shadow Dragon Saga lead skill, and he is only 120% Shadow Dragon Saga lead. Now, even though you might say, okay, well, Shadow Dragon Saga is a smaller category and it's a smaller lead, Shadow Dragon Saga actually lacks a lot of leads. You only have Omega Shenron, Gogeta, Oceanus, and this Nova Shenron. So if you're trying to do a Shadow Dragon SBR, Nova Shenron might be your best bet. So just remember that even though a category may be small, it doesn't necessarily mean the leader skill is not valuable. Sometimes smaller categories or more off categories have more valuable leads. A great example of this is Piccolo. Piccolo's category, the Namekian category, doesn't have a lot of leads for it. But if you take a look at the Namekian category, it's also very small. However, Piccolo's leader skills are 170% across the board. This means that the moment the Namekian category picks up another 1 or 2 really good units, it's gonna really start to fly. It's got Demon King Piccolo LR's just come out. This LR for Piccolo might get an easier. We might get another transforming Piccolo. Nail is a good card. Then you've got a new DFE Demon King Piccolo that could come out. You've got Majunia that could come out. You've got a whole bunch of Namekians that could come out. You could have the Universe 6 Namekians awaken or get a DFE. So it's quite imperative that you evaluate cards by just taking a look at their leader skill and seeing whether it's valuable. If it's a category lead, a category and sub lead, it can be a very, very, very good card. Another example of this is this LR Vegeta. Yes, he leads worthy rivals, but he also leads super physical, and on super physical is a Goku that allows him to meet his super attack conditions. Keep that in mind as well. What kind of teams can I build with the combination of these leader skills that this card has? That's also going to help you in determining whether to use a card or to focus on it. Maybe you have cards that are sitting in the Future Saga, Maybe you have cards that are sitting in the exploding anger or exploding rage category. Maybe you've got the Cell Saga and Android Saga category leads. You don't know. But the important thing is to evaluate cards based on that lead and based on that leader skill. The next thing we're going to take a look at is stats. So if you looked at Trunks, he was gaining 5,000 in every single stat as a rainbow card. To give you an example of how the stat system works, you get SS tier cards, S tier cards, A tier cards, and B tier cards. So if we take a look at this Frieza here, he has 4,000 in stats. As a free-to-play card, him and this Vegeta Jr. both have what are called A tier systems. That means that they gain decent stat gain from having dupes. Now, not every card is designed to be equal. Some cards have lower stat gains than others, an example being this Great Saiyaman 2. They have a B tier stat gain system. A lot of the times what they'll do, especially with free-to-play cards that have a lot of usefulness, or on teams that they may become too powerful or they need to net them off against their passive, is they will adjust the stat gain system. That's why free-to-play cards can vary between A and B tier systems. Most TUR cards will sit at a S tier system, meaning about 5,000 in every single stat. You can see that by comparing this free-to-play Ghost Tanks with this TUR summonable Gogeta. Now, if we take a look at the older Gogeta, we'll notice that he later on will have 7,000 in a stat. That's an SS tier card, and those cards are some of the older ones where they had larger stat gains. This Janemba is also one of them. So, when keeping that in mind and taking a look at units, I'm not saying that the stat gain is super important, but stat gain will also help you in seeing whether a unit is more valuable in terms of receiving dupes. Now obviously free-to-play cards, I always suggest opening up all their hidden potential paths, as it's always super helpful to have them on hand should you ever want to awaken them later. But overall, what the stat gain does show is it just shows how the unit's own internal mechanisms are working, and how much value you gain from a single dupe. Cards like Strength Gogeta, for example, gain tremendous value from being a dupe. While you're leveling units, you can kind of notice this when you're activating the hidden potential system. While we look at Oob here, we can kind of see his stat gain and notice that he's sitting in kind of an A and B plus tier category. Similarly with this physical Gohan, we can take a look here and we can see his stat gain again is sitting in that kind of category. Now if we take a summonable card, which we'll find here in this Android 17, and we take a look at his stat gain, we'll notice that he has a slightly higher stat gain than the other two cards, and that's because he's sitting in the summonable threshold. So the thing about stats is stats are not obviously the most important thing in the game, because some cards can have a 200% passive comparatively to a card that has 50%. But the way the stats work are they're the baseline for your calculations. So if a card gains more stats from dupes, then it's going to be something that's a lot more helpful. The next thing we're going to take a look at is SA effects. So the problem with super attack effects is that they're not going to determine whether the card is good or not, but they're more going to determine how you want to build the card, and they're going to determine what kind of content maybe you use the card for. An example of this is Trunks over there gains the ability to raise attack and defense on his super attack, whereas this LR here has two super attack effects, a medium chance to stun and a high chance to stun, depending on whether you get the 12 or 18 key. These kind of variances in SA are going to determine how you build the cards. This Trunks here raises allies attack by 30%. Now because he has to super before he raises that attack, you have to think about whether you're going to be able to put him in the first slot or second slot to boost up some of your other units. If you're never going to run that card in the first slot, there's no point giving that card additional, because it's never going to provide its buff to other units. So you're better off taking that card, running him in the third slot and giving him crit. Those are the type of things that you need to kind of assess when you look at other cards and what they do. One of the most common super attack effects that I love and that everyone loves for SBR is attack lowering. Now attack lowering is a very, very helpful skill. So first, if you don't know, you can search for attack effects over here to see which cards do what. But the main thing about attack lowering is that it's an incredibly helpful skill in terms of reducing the amount of damage that enemies deal to you. This is very helpful obviously in content whereby you take a lot of damage. Keeping that in mind, when you're building these cards, you also want to look at their passives to see whether you're going to obviously, like a good example being Launch. Okay, Launch lowers attack and defense, okay, and also seals, and already does additionals. So when we take a look at Launch and we see her SA lowers attack and defense, we don't need to give her additional. We can give her more crit because she already has built-in additionals in her kit. So you can't take SA as a separate kind of metric upon which to evaluate cards. You do have to read it along with the passive, but it is generally a baseline indicator on how you want to build your cards and how you want to utilize the hidden potential system and utilize the gearing system as well. So when you take a look at cards, take a look at their SA. After looking at their stats, after looking at the leader skill, take a look at the essay. See, what does this card do? What kind of team do I want to use this card for? Am I using him for long form content? Am I using them for short form content? Will he be used in Ultimate Challenge? Will it be used in World Tournaments? Will it be used in SBR, ESBR? There's so much content in the game and so much variable content in the game that it's generally something you're going to have to factor in when you think about things. There are tons of guides on the internet that will tell you the optimal way from an attack perspective on how to build your card, and you can follow those and that's fine. But the most important thing for me is that you understand how the card works, because that's going to assist you way more than anything else. So we've looked at essay, we've looked at leader skill. Now we really want to look at the passive. So like I said, you need to kind of look at this in conjunction with your essay. But if we look at Trunks, we can see Trunks gains attack and defense per turn as he transforms. When he gets to his final form, his attacks are effective against all types. Because of this, and because Trunks' final form is not super difficult to attain, Trunks' build is almost entirely additional. Because yes, some crit will help him crit in his two base forms, but he can attain this final form quite easily. Additional helps him really stack his defense quite quickly, and that allows him to perform really well in mid to long term content. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Vegeta. Vegeta's passive lasts for 10 turns, and makes him a god when it comes to combat. That allows him to be a short form content unit. And you get cards like Toppo, who have support based passives. Give key to other units, they reduce defense of enemies, they raise attack and defense of your own units, plus he has a conditional passive. It's important when reading your passives that you understand how they kick in. So when a card says something like needs 40% health to activate its damage reduction, that is health at the start of turn. If your card has 41% health at the start of turn and you take an attack to reduce you to 39%, that card will maintain its full passive. It's only when you start the turn below that passive threshold that it will not kick in. Cards that have passives that begin on super attack, those will occur when the card attacks, the moment they instantly attack. If the card does not have that and you put it in the first slot and it gets attacked before, its passive will not kick in. A prime example of this is LR Broly. Other cards' passives are conditional based on team. They will say whether they need them in rotation. This card says here when 2 or more Vegeta's family category units are in the team. That means you only need this card and another card on the team that is Vegeta's family category. It's important to take note that the card, if it says a certain amount of category units, it only means including this card unless specifically saying so. A lot of cards will say other stuff along the lines of excluding Goku Jr., for example, for Goku passives. So it's important when you're looking at cards to evaluate them from a passive sense. One of the things also, when we go back to that reference of Bardock that I showed you earlier, and evaluating cards, Bardock's passive is a 30% attack buff and 2 key when above 30% health. If we look at all the cards on Bardock's category, Super Saiyan, Revenge, Time Travelers, Crossovers, all the support units on those categories not only don't have conditional passives like this Metal Cooler, for example, who gives the 30% attack unconditionally, but they overall are just better cards and generally can be built on their teams to assist those teams way better. You do get cards, however, that you can't just value based on their passive numbers or how they perform in those locations. An example of this is the Mars. I use Int Ma all the time for my Future Saga team, and a lot of people won't use her because her passive is a 40% buff, but she doesn't bring anything else to the table. She brings a stun and basically a 40% buff and 2 keys. However, Mai has Cold Judgment as a link, which you can keep up 50% of the time while she's on rotation. She has Brainiacs as well, which is another defensive link. So again, you can't evaluate these things segmentedly. You have to look at every part of the card altogether, but it's important to start at the top with the leader skill and work your way through. The passive and the leader skill are probably the most important parts of the card, with everything else being auxiliary. An example of a card that everyone uses but that has what appears on paper to be a terrible passive is this Mai. This Mai is entirely used because of her stun in Extreme SBR Agility. She's very, very good in Extreme SBR Agility. She buffs agility type units, she gives them ki, and also she can stun, keeping herself out of danger if you get lucky. However, her passive is terrible. Would I run her on other teams? No, not really, but she is situational. Some cards are entirely situational, and that is fine. But when we're evaluating cards in a general sense and we're trying to see where we want to focus on cards that have the best passives to suit what your team needs. Do you have 2 very tanky cards? Maybe you don't need another tanky card that has damage reduction. Maybe you need another card with support skills. So I'm not going to touch too much on gearing here. It's not really entirely necessary, and it's kind of in its own other video, because gear is entirely judgmental and is based on the card and you evaluate it separately. But one of the things I do want to touch on is links. So like I said, leader skills and passives are the most important part of the card. However, another part of the card that is super important, is probably as important as SA skills, if not more important than SA skills, is the links. So the thing with links is some links are greater than others, that's for sure. Some links are better than other ones. I mean, your Big Bad Bosses is a well-known link that basically can transform how an entire unit looks. Similarly, Margin is also a super powerful link, and we'll go through those kind of teams just now. But an important thing about links is looking at how that unit's links enable it to link across its categories. So for example, Trunks is on Hybrid Saiyans. Now, having Saiyan Warrior Race and having Prepared for Battle and having Fierce Battle enables this unit to at least get 2 or 3 links all the time with a lot of other Hybrid Saiyans. Golden Warrior, Super Saiyan, all these kind of links are shared a lot across Hybrid Saiyans. So that means that if you're running him on a Hybrid Saiyan team, he should link alright. And similarly with Future Saga units, a lot of the Future Saga units will have Dismal Future. This Vegeta, even though he's on the Future Saga, his link set for the Future Saga is not actually the best, because this Vegeta is missing some of the crucial links for the Future Saga. He is not really linking too well with any Trunkses, except for Royal Lineage, and to be honest, he doesn't have Dismal Future. So his link set for that Trunks, for this team, is not the best. He maybe sits at 2 links, 3 links half the time, which is okay when he's rainbowed, but sometimes you really want the links to really kick in. If you have a team that's linking up with 4 or 5 links across the board, like a Martian team or a Wicked Bloodlines team, you're going to see a lot greater results than even running some support types on that team, because links are so powerful now. You know, having a 30% support but missing out on Big Bad Bosses and Martian, for example, for a team isn't worth it, because those links add up to a total higher percentage than the support. Getting to Margin, we can take a look here at this new unit in Margin Buu, who just got an Easy A. So he's got a perfect linking partner, but also his link set is fantastic. Margin becomes a 15% and 2 key link. Big Bad Bosses becomes 25% attack and defense permanently. Wall Standing Tall, Infinite Regeneration, all these links add attack and defense, and with the key solving from his Margin link, he really doesn't struggle. Another thing that you're going to want to keep an eye on is things like the Wicked Bloodlines team. They all have big bad bosses. They all have most malevolent clan in space. They're all sharing all these super powerful links. Conquest of Terror, all these super powerful links that these units have. So it's important when you're building your team or when you're assessing a card, what kind of links do they have? How do they link amongst their team? If you get a Super Saiyan Goku that has worthy rivals and has Dragon Ball Seekers and he's not really going to fit on the team. He's not really going to fit on any of his major teams. And then running him on Dragon Ball Seekers, he's not going to have things like the Great Adventure, and he's not going to have a whole bunch of your necessary links to make him function on that team. So when you're looking at units, please keep in mind, like you look here, this free-to-play card has Wicked Bloodlines. That makes him more valuable to cards like Cooler and Tech Freezer than that Int Freezer I just showed, who links way better with full-powered Freezers. It's things like that you want to keep in mind. Take a look at your units. There's a great website called www.dokkanbattlebuilder.com. You can use that to check links. So take a look there if you can from time to time, but there's plenty of linking websites that you can use to take a look at our unit links. The final part of a card that's super important in determining the value of a card, or at least in terms of determining how you're going to use a card or how you may want to use a card, is categories. So the more categories a card has, the better the card is, because one, it can do more challenges, it can do more missions, it can do more SBR, it can do more ESBR, it can do more challenges for LGE, it can do more missions for Infinite Dragon Ball History. Just overall, more categories means more usability. Take a look at Cooler. Cooler has 6 categories. Tech Freezer has freaking 12 categories, and they're growing more day by day. Categories also help you kind of see a usability between units. So this first form Freezer is going to be technically better than Tech first form Freezer. It can't be avoided. He's gonna get an easy A and he's gonna become overall a much better card. However, he's missing 4 categories that this Tech Freezer has. So if you need a card for the other teams, go for that Tech Freezer. They have very similar linking sets, but that Tech Freezer has those categories. He can actually fit on those teams, like movie bosses, for example. Prime Battle Freezer can't do movie bosses SBR. Tech Freezer can. That's where your utility of units comes in. Cards like Topo, who are very powerful, are hindered by only having 4 categories. Dispo, decent card, hindered 3 categories. It's part of a card's makeup and design that you have to evaluate in determining not only how good the card is, but where you can use the card, because this whole video isn't about determining. Everyone kind of knows whether LRSS4 Agility Goku is better than physical summonable support Bardock. Like, no one needs to be told that. But it's about evaluating your cards and seeing how they fit in and how you can use them. That's super important. Dragon Ball Seekers, for example, these guys are a absolute beast of a card. They hit crazy damage, they have good defense. They're on 2 categories. Until they get more categories, they're just not going to get the love that they deserve, because they do not have the ability to showcase their skill set on multiple teams. They do not have the ability to perform for your account and garner more stones for your account by performing on multiple teams. And this is evident across a lot of categories. I mean, Team Bardock are starting to get more categories. These can happen. They came out with like 2 categories. Now they have 5. Most cards will gain categories. No card ever loses categories. They either gain categories when new ones come out, or they get retrospectively adjusted from time to time. So please don't evaluate cards solely on how good the artwork is. Evaluate cards on a lot more facilities that you have, and learn to read your cards and kind of assess where you're going to use your cards. Teen Gohan is one of the best cards in the game because of the fact that he's so varied, he's so good, he's so powerful in a lot of content, and he's just got a beautifully designed kit. That being said, the cards you will like the most are the characters you like the most. Don't let anybody tell you at the end of the day, whether your card sucks, if you enjoy the card, you use it in your teams that you like to play with, and it has animations that you think are boss and cool, use that card. That card is the card you want to use. So that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it helps a lot of new players with understanding their cards and what to look for in cards, or at least with team building. And I hope it helps you guys in just kind of understanding the game and getting going with it. But thanks for watching. Cheers, and I'll see you next time. Bye.